Think Hollywood's golden age was all glamour and good manners? Think again. Before the production code took over, studios raced to outdo each other with stories that turned polite society upside down. On screen, audiences found characters who broke rules, questioned traditions, and did things nobody thought possible in the movies. Censors and church groups tried everything to stop them. But for a few wild years, Hollywood ran free. These are the films that broke the mold, sparked protests, and redefined what the silver screen could show. Here are 15 risque pre-code classics that truly pushed the boundaries of censorship and left a legacy too bold to be forgotten. Babyface, 1933. Few films in Hollywood's early history shook the system like Babyface. Barbara Stanwyck stars as Lily Powers, a woman from a rough background who's learned one lesson. In a world ruled by powerful men, it's up to a woman to use every tool she has to survive and win. The story follows Lily as she leaves her small-town speakeasy job and heads to New York, climbing the ladder from the basement files to the top office of a massive bank. What sets this film apart isn't just her ambition, but her unflinching intelligence. She makes her own decisions and never apologizes for them. Babyface was so daring that it almost didn't see the light of day. The Hays Office, already under pressure to control immorality in film, rejected the original cut and demanded multiple edits. Studio executives were forced to reshoot key scenes and tack on a moral ending, but even the revised version drew fire. In several states, censors banned the film or forced further cuts. Still, word spread that this was the film to see, and Babyface became a sensation. Audiences were fascinated by Lily's cunning and Stanwyck's electric performance. She wasn't a villain, but a survivor, making her way in a tough world. For decades, the uncut version was lost, until a restoration in 2004 revealed just how bold the film originally was. Today, Babyface stands as a landmark, a film that challenged everything Hollywood was supposed to be and forced the censors to draw a hard line. It's a story of strength, ambition, and the price of playing by your own rules. Red-Headed Woman, 1932. When Jean Harlow appeared in Red-Headed Woman, audiences knew they were in for a wild ride. Harlow's Lil Andrews is no shrinking violet. She's a secretary who decides she wants a better life, and nothing, not marriage vows, not polite convention, not the disapproval of society, will stand in her way. The film tracks Lil's relentless campaign to win over her wealthy married boss, breaking up his marriage and climbing the social ladder with pure nerve and quick wit. What truly shocked audiences and censors was not just what Lil did, but the way she did it. There's no hand-wringing, no guilt, and certainly no punishment at the end. Instead, the film dares to present a woman who outsmarts everyone, including the men who think they're in control. The script is packed with sly humor and double meanings, with Harlow delivering every line with a wink that lets the audience in on the joke. Conservative groups and religious leaders were appalled. The Catholic Legion of Decency called for boycotts, while censors in several states demanded major edits or banned the film outright. MGM was pressured to cut specific scenes, but the overall message remained intact. Lil wins. Despite, or because of the controversy, the film was a massive hit and helped make Harlow a star. Red-Headed Woman stands as a cheeky, unapologetic rebuke to society's double standards. It dared to show that women could make their own choices and that sometimes breaking the rules was the only way to win. The Story of Temple Drake, 1933. The Story of Temple Drake was one of the most talked about and condemned films of the pre-code era. Adapted from William Faulkner's shocking novel Sanctuary, the film stars Miriam Hopkins as Temple Drake, a Southern debutante whose world is shattered when she finds herself trapped in a web of crime and danger after a single reckless decision. The film was blunt in its depiction of corruption, violence, and the failure of society's respectable institutions to protect those in need. This film rattled audiences with its dark mood and unwillingness to offer easy answers. Rather than providing comfort, it showed a world where innocence is not always enough to save someone, and where those who claim the moral high ground can be the most corrupt of all. Religious leaders and critics were outraged. arguing that the film was unfit for any decent audience. The Catholic Legion of Decency labeled it a disgrace to the screen, and the movie was banned outright in several states. Despite the storm of criticism, the story of Temple Drake drew crowds eager to see what everyone was talking about. Paramount was forced to withdraw it from some cities and cut scenes for others, but the controversy only made it more famous. Many historians now cite the film as one of the key reasons the production code was finally enforced with such rigor. It is a chilling, unvarnished look at the limits of justice and morality in a broken world. Tarzan and His Mate, 1934. Tarzan and His Mate might sound like a typical adventure film, but in 1934, it was a sensation for reasons no jungle epic had ever managed before. While Johnny Weissmuller's Tarzan brought athleticism and physical prowess to the screen, it was Maureen O'Sullivan's Jane who ignited controversy. The film's most talked about sequence is an underwater swimming scene where Jane glides through the river alongside Tarzan, filmed with a body double, Olympic swimmer Josephine McKim. The footage was so bold that censors acted quickly, ordering that the entire sequence be cut from most versions for decades. Even beyond that scene, the movie pushed boundaries in the way it portrayed its leads, unconstrained by the strict codes of decency that would soon rule Hollywood. Jane and Tarzan's playful, trusting relationship was shown in a way that felt honest and real, challenging the era's usual presentation of romance and partnership. Church leaders, parent groups, and censors in many regions condemned the film. MGM faced intense scrutiny, and local boards either trimmed or outright banned the movie in certain places. It wasn't until decades later that the full uncut film was widely available. Tarzan and His Mate stands as a testament to the pre-code period's willingness to explore the human body, freedom, and trust. It is remembered not just as a technical marvel, but as a symbol of how much filmmakers were willing to risk before the curtain finally came down. Ecstasy, 1933. Ecstasy is a European import that set the American film community and its censors on edge. Starring a young Hedy Lamarr, the film tells the story of Eva, a woman who finds herself unfulfilled in her marriage and seeks joy and connection elsewhere. What truly made the film legendary were two scenes, one in which Eva swims in a secluded lake and another that delicately depicts her awakening and emotional journey. The film was banned in the United States for years. Religious leaders and civic authorities launched campaigns to keep it out of theaters, calling it corrupting and unfit for public exhibition. In some places, church groups threatened boycotts, and the film could only be shown in heavily censored versions or special adults-only screenings. The controversy followed Lamarr throughout her career, but Ecstasy was eventually recognized as an important work of cinematic art. The film is now celebrated not only for its poetic imagery, but for its groundbreaking approach to human longing and vulnerability. Despite the uproar and decades of restricted showings, Ecstasy changed the conversation about what film could portray, proving that sometimes the boldest art comes from refusing to look away from what makes us human. She Done Him Wrong, 1933. Mae West's She Done Him Wrong was a revelation and a revolution. West plays Lady Lou, a singer in a seedy New York bar who breezes through danger, temptation, and chaos with unflappable confidence. She's never the victim, always the operator. The film brims with witty dialogue, delivered in West's trademark style, with double meanings and a kind of knowing humor that left censors frustrated and sometimes clueless. West's script, much of which she wrote herself, was loaded with jokes that tiptoed right up to the boundaries of what was allowed, and sometimes danced across. Critics raved about West's bravado and the way her character turned every man's scheme into her own opportunity. Religious leaders, on the other hand, were appalled. The Legion of Decency and other groups called for bans and edits, and some theaters faced protests for showing the film. Despite the uproar, She Done Him Wrong became a smash hit and helped save Paramount from financial ruin. West's fearless persona and refusal to apologize for her power made her a symbol of freedom in an industry dominated by men. She Done Him Wrong is remembered not just as a comedy, but as a battle cry for women who refuse to play by the old rules, and a film that proved audiences would always flock to see someone brave enough to push the envelope. Female, 1933. female stands out in Hollywood's early history for putting a woman in charge, not just of her destiny, but of a major business. Ruth Chatterton stars as Allison Drake, the confident, whip-smart president of a successful automobile company. She calls the shots in the boardroom and her private life, making decisions that leave the men around her scrambling to catch up. The film was controversial for its candid approach to gender roles and power. Allison doesn't have to apologize for her authority, and the movie never punishes her for refusing to know her place. Religious leaders and social critics argued that the film threatened the natural order, while the press called it startling and unorthodox. Censors in some cities required small cuts, but audiences responded enthusiastically to a story about a woman who would not be told what she could or could not do. Female has become a touchstone for feminist film scholars, but at the time it was both celebrated and criticized for its willingness to ask, what happens when women have all the power, and what are men afraid of losing? Search for Beauty, 1934. If there was ever a film that tested the patience of censors and religious groups under the guise of wholesome fun, it was Search for Beauty. Starring Buster Crabbe and Ida Lupino, the film pretends to be about health and physical fitness, but spends much of its running time on group exercise routines, poolside pageantry, and playful scenes that left nothing to the imagination for 1934. Church leaders and local authorities quickly condemned the movie, calling it a thinly veiled excuse for showing improper displays. The Catholic Legion of Decency issued warnings, while some city censors demanded edits or banned showings altogether. Studio publicity was gleeful, playing up the controversy to draw curious crowds. The movie's real legacy is in how it captures the moment just before Hollywood shut the door on such spectacle. It's a rare time capsule, full of exuberance and freedom, and a reminder that sometimes breaking the rules is exactly what the audience wants to see. The Divorcee, 1930. Norma Shearer's performance as Jerry Martin in The Divorcee broke new ground for how Hollywood could talk about marriage, fidelity, and equality. When Jerry discovers her husband has betrayed her, she refuses to accept the double standard that allows men to stray while women are shamed. Instead, she chooses independence and takes control of her own happiness, shocking the people around her and many in the audience. The film was instantly controversial, with critics, clergy, and parent groups denouncing its message as a threat to family and society. Censors demanded warnings or edits, but the movie was a huge hit, and Shearer won an Oscar for her fearless, nuanced portrayal. The Divorcee dared to ask, what if women demanded the same freedom as men? It's a question that rattled the establishment then, and still resonates today. The film's influence on conversations about gender, relationships, and power cannot be overstated. Anne Vickers, 1933. Anne Vickers is a bold portrait of a woman who refuses to fit into society's box. Irene Dunn's Anne is a social worker and reformer who challenges the status quo at every turn, from her work in prisons to her relationships outside of marriage. The movie, based on Sinclair Lewis's controversial novel, tackles subjects that were considered off-limits, even dangerous, in the early 1930s. Religious groups responded with outrage, organizing boycotts and urging censors to block or edit the film. The Catholic Legion of Decency gave it a condemned rating, and some cities refused to show it at all. But the public was drawn to Anne's courage and realism. Her journey is one of struggle, loss, and hard-won independence. Anne Vickers remains important for its honest look at social problems and personal choice. It is a rare example of Hollywood telling a woman's story without flinching from the truth, no matter how inconvenient or controversial that truth might be. Night Nurse, 1931. Night Nurse is a tense, thrilling story that mixes crime, drama, and suspense, all anchored by Barbara Stanwyck's fierce portrayal of Nurse Laura Hart. Assigned to care for two sick children, Laura quickly uncovers a plot that threatens their lives, orchestrated by a menacing chauffeur played by Clark Gable. What made the film so controversial wasn't just its plot, but its unvarnished depiction of the dangers faced by women and children in a world with few protections. Censors were uneasy about the film's honesty. Several states demanded cuts, particularly of scenes that showed corruption in hospitals and the failure of the authorities to protect the innocent. Religious and civic leaders condemned the movie, saying it was too gritty for mainstream audiences. Yet it was precisely this realism, showing a woman who refuses to back down in the face of evil, that made Night Nurse a hit. Stanwyck's Laura is brave, resourceful, and impossible to intimidate. The film's suspense and bold storytelling helped establish the template for future thrillers, while its willingness to tackle tough issues head-on marked it as a pre-code classic. Employee's Entrance, 1933. Employee's Entrance offers a hard-edged look at power, ambition, and workplace exploitation. Warren Williams stars as Kurt Anderson, a ruthless department store executive who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. Loretta Young's Madeline is caught in his web but refuses to be crushed by the pressure. The movie exposes the dark side of corporate ambition, showing how unchecked power can devastate the vulnerable. What set the film apart was its frank portrayal of predatory behavior and the struggle of women to retain their dignity and independence. Critics, clergy, and censors were united in their discomfort. Some cities refused to show the film at all, while others demanded major cuts. Despite the controversy, Employee's Entrance found its audience. It remains a powerful example of pre-code honesty, refusing to sugarcoat reality or offer easy answers. Instead, it tells the truth about power, courage, and the price of survival in a world that doesn't always play fair. Scarface, 1932. Scarface is the original gangster movie, and nothing about it is subtle. Howard Hawks' film tells the story of Tony Camanta, played by Paul Mooney, who rises from street tough to underworld kingpin through a mix of violence, ambition, and ruthless cunning. The film's fast pace and intense action left audiences stunned and censors horrified. What really rattled the authorities, though, was the film's attitude. It seemed to revel in the excitement of the criminal world, showing crime as thrilling and glamorous without hammering home a crime doesn't pay message. The Catholic Legion of Decency, along with civic groups, demanded the studio add disclaimers and alternate endings. Some states banned the film or only allowed edited versions to screen. Despite, or because of, the outcry, Scarface was a box office hit and set the standard for every gangster film that followed. Its legacy isn't just in its action scenes, but in its fearless look at a world where the old rules don't apply. The Bitter Tea of General Yen, 1933. Frank Capra's The Bitter Tea of General Yen was both visually daring and emotionally bold. The film stars Barbara Stanwyck as a missionary in war-torn China, caught between loyalty, faith, and the enigmatic General Yen, played by Niels Oster. The film's exploration of cross-cultural romance, spiritual doubt, and psychological complexity was radical for its time. Religious leaders and censors saw the film as a direct challenge to social and spiritual norms. The Catholic Legion of Decency condemned it, and several cities banned it outright, objecting to both its subject matter and its daring visuals. Capra's refusal to give easy answers and his insistence on showing the real consequences of conflict and longing was ahead of its time. The Bitter Tea of General Yen has since been recognized as one of Capra's masterpieces, praised for its rich atmosphere and willingness to tackle difficult themes. In the pre-code era, it showed just how far a director could go before the censors shut the door. Murder at the Vanities, 1934. Murders at the Vanities combined murder mystery with musical spectacle, creating one of the last and most outrageous pre-code extravaganzas. The film is set backstage at a Broadway show where elaborate musical numbers and a parade of chorus girls keep the action and the audience's attention moving at breakneck speed. The film became notorious for its risque routines, especially the Sweet Marijuana number, which featured costumes and choreography that would be unthinkable a year later. Paramount leaned into the controversy knowing that Scandal sold tickets, but censors and religious groups were not amused. Some cities banned the film, while others insisted on major cuts. Despite, or perhaps because of, the drama, Murder at the Vanities was a hit with moviegoers. It's remembered now as a wild, unapologetic farewell to Hollywood's brief era of creative freedom, proof that, for a little while, the sky really was the limit for what could be shown on screen. For a few wild years, Hollywood dared to go where no studio had gone before, turning out films that challenged every limit, shattered every rule, and left audiences breathless. These 15 risque pre-code classics prove that real innovation comes from risk, not safety. Which one shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you love cinema's hidden history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the movies that push boundaries are the ones we remember. In the end, what's truly unforgettable is not what's hidden, but what's brave enough to be seen.